So, hi, my name is Rudrank Riyam. I'm the iOS Developer Relations Engineer at Codemagic. Welcome to the webinar and taking the pain away from iOS code signing using Codemagic. Feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A section, and I will answer them after the presentation. Also, if you have any general questions related to Codemagic, you can ask them in the GitHub discussions. I will share the link in the chat afterwards as well. So code signing is a crucial step in iOS development, and it is a must-learn skill as an iOS developer. It ensures that your app is securely signed with you or your team's unique developer account and can be safely installed on a user's device. And as you all know, Codemagic is a CI/CD platform that is specifically designed for mobile app development. It streamlines the code signing process and makes it easy to set up, manage your code signing identities, the certificates, and the provisioning profiles. With Codemagic, you can automate the signing process that makes it much easier and faster to get your app ready for distribution. This webinar will cover the challenges and pain points of code signing and how Codemagic can help streamline the process. I will also go through a demonstration where I set up code signing so that you can start using it in your own app as well. So first, let's talk about why code signing is important for iOS development. You understand that as it is a security measure that is put up by Apple that ensures that your app's authenticity and integrity is maintained. The app is not tampered with, and when you submit your app to the App Store, Apple will verify your code signing to ensure that the app that is being installed on the user's device is not running any potentially malicious software. It is, and as you can understand, it is a very necessary step in the process of creating and distributing your app to the App Store. But you can understand that it is a lot of process, and setting up and maintaining this whole code signing can also be a pain, especially as your team grows. It may become a source of frustration and complexity when you are managing multiple signing identities and provisioning profiles. Before I go further, let's talk about, do a recap on code signing. So code signing can be divided into two parts. One is the code signing certificates, and the other one is code signing provisioning profiles. So code signing certificates are digital certificates that are issued by a certificate authority. This authority verifies the identity of the developer, that's you, before issuing the certificate. There are two types of code signing certificate. The first one is the development certificate that is for testing and debugging. And the other one is for distribution, which is for signing your app for test flight, app store, or enterprise distribution, or if you want to send your app for third-party services like Firebase app distribution. Then the other part of the code signing process is the provisioning profiles, which links your app to that specific code signing certificate and the set of devices and entitlements. These entitlements can be like iCloud entitlements or your push notifications. These profiles enable your app to be installed and run on an iOS device for development, testing, and debugging. There are four types of provisioning profiles. The main ones are for development and distribution. The other is for ad hoc and enterprise. However, as you can imagine, this whole managing of code signing and everything becomes complex and time consuming. And apart from being prone to human errors, especially if you're a new developer. And this becomes a bigger headache for teams where you are managing multiple app targets, and where the developers require their own provisioning profiles. And this may become a source of conflict if it is not managed correctly. You often have to maintain multiple signing identities for different purposes. Let's say you have an staging environment or a development environment apart from a test flight environment, or the one that is the main source for sending your app to the App Store. Also, these certificates and provisioning profiles have expiration dates, and they can be revoked by the certificate authority. So you also need to take care of that. And that's where Codemagic comes in. Before I go further, if you want to understand code signing more in depth, there's a website called as ioscodesigning.io. I will link it into the chat as well. That is created by Codemagic, and you can understand Codemagic in depth and to understand the whole process behind it as well. So Codemagic simplifies the code signing process that by providing a user-friendly interface that allows you to easily create and manage the code signing certificates and provisioning profiles. This eliminates the need for you to maintain the code signing infrastructure, which can be time consuming and error prone. Codemagic also automates the code signing process of releasing the iOS app, making it easier for the developers to create the sign builds for distribution and development. This can save you significant time, energy, and effort, allowing you to focus on other aspects of app development. When you have a common environment, it means that you don't have to worry about setting up and maintaining the certificates and profiles. With Codemagic, you can configure the code signing settings and let us handle the rest. You can specify your code certificate provisioning profile and signing options, such as the bundles identifier. And Codemagic automatically signs your app with these settings whenever you trigger a new build. So, wow, that was a lot of theoretical part. So let's go on a demonstration where I show you how easy it is to code sign your app. We take an example of a sample app called as Codemagic that helps you sign your app with the App Store for App Store distribution. So as you can see, I am on codemagic.io on my app called as Codemagic. And this is a native iOS app that is using the Codemagic workflow configuration file, which is an YAML file. I can divide the the code signing process into three parts. The first one is having your Codemagic account set up with the App Store account so that you can use the App Store Connect API key. The second part is getting the certificates, the code signing certificates and the provisioning profiles. And the third part is referencing them in your workflow configuration. So starting with the first part, we need to go to App Store Connect under users and access, where you can get the keys and generate a new key, API key. So I can recommend you that you can create a specific key to use for Codemagic and have the access level as developer or app manager. You can see that I have already created one. You need the issuer ID, the key ID, and you can download an API key. On your Codemagic account under the teams, you can either select your personal account if you are working for your personal projects, or if you're working in a team, you can choose your team account. So in the settings, you can see that we have integrations. Under integrations, there's developer portal that we have the Apple developer portal integration, where you can manage multiple keys. You can add a key here with a key name that we will use to reference in the Codemagic YAML file later on. Then we get the issuer ID, the key ID, and the API key from the App Store Connect that I showed you before. After saving it, you can see that I've already created a key. You will get another key like this here. So the first part is done. The second part is under code signing identities on the same page. Here you can see that we have two options. For iOS certificates, we have three options. The first option is to upload the certificate file. Let's say you have an existing certificate with a password that you want to add here. The second option is to generate a new code signing certificate. Codemagic creates a new certificate on your behalf. And the third one is to get certificates from Apple Developer Portal. So let's say I go to certificates, identifiers, and profiles on developer.apple.com. Here you can create a new certificate, and the most commonly used one is Apple development or the Apple App Store distribution. After creating a certificate, when you go back on Codemagic, you can fetch the certificates. And after fetching the certificates, I can see that I have some certificates that I have all. So I have a code signing certificate that I'm already using, which is Codemagic for Codemagic distribution. And after adding your certificates for your app, then the second step is to get the iOS provisioning profile for your particular app. We have two ways for doing that. The first one is to upload the provisioning profile. You can go to your App Store account and get the provisioning profile from there. I think my account has been logged out, so I will just try to log in and show you as well. So under profiles, you can see that I have many profiles. And if you want to create another one, you create a development profile. The most commonly used is a development profile or a distribution profile for App Store. Now, if I go and create one, we'll get the option to select the app ID for it. Let's say you have a particular app which has an widget or a watch kit app as well. So you need to create individual provisioning profiles for each of your app extensions. For example, if your app has a widget extension or a shortcut intent or a watch app, then you will need to create individual provisioning profiles here. And after creating them, you can use the same distribution profile, which is that you have used for Codemagic. And after continuing, you can provide a provisioning profile name for this. And after generating a provisioning profile, you go back to Codemagic and try to fetch the profiles from Apple Developer Portal. As you can see, a Codemagic named provisioning profile for this particular app has been generated, and I can just download selected after providing it a unique reference name. Now you can see that I have added a provisioning profile as well. Now, for this particular app that named Codemagic, the certificate matches the profile that I have been created, which is for distribution. So let's go back to our app. Now on the codemagic.yaml file, the third step is to use those App Store Connect API key that we have defined earlier and the signing that we defined as well. So the first part is to add the App Store Connect property under integrations. I'm using Rudrank AC API key. The second step is under iOS code signing. You can mention the distribution type. Here we are configuring the app for App Store distribution and the bundle identifier for the particular app. And Codemagic can also automatically get all the provisioning profiles for the extensions as well. So let's say com.rudrankriyam.codemagician.widgets is a bundle identifier. Codemagic can automatically fetch that as well. But if you want some advanced use case, instead of using the distribution type and the bundle identifier, you can also use the name of the provisioning profile and the certificate. The next step is to use these provisioning profiles by using the command Xcode project use profiles. And then the final step is to build the IPA for distribution. And now, as you can see, you use the project name and the scheme name for building the IPA. You can also store this IPA if you want, and then later on use it to send it to Slack or use it for third-party distribution as well. So let's try and run a build to see if we have configured it correctly or not. So I am running a build on main branch using the Codemagic iOS code signing example. So while the build is preparing, we'll just see, we will go through each of the steps that are going through in this particular workflow. And I just want to mention that Codemagic uses the M1 Mac Mini as the default machine, which is very, very fast. So this workflow shouldn't take us much time. The second thing is that if you want to start with Codemagic, we offer 500 minutes for free. So you can just get started after this webinar as well. So let's go through each step individually. You can see that when preparing the build machine, it is using my App Store Connect API key. And under setup code signing identities, it initializes a temporary keychain using the code signing certificates. And it is using the Code Magician provisioning profile and the Codemagic distribution signing certificate as well. And it has imported one key and one certificate. And when it sets up the provisioning profile, you can see that it uses the method as App Store with the name of the provisioning profile, the signing certificate as App Store Apple distribution, and then it is finally building the IPA for distribution. And in the end, it has successfully created an archive for our app. And then we can use this Codemagic dot. And if you want to take this further, you can add a few lines to send this app to test flight or App Store as well. So now that you have seen how easy it is to set up code signing for your app, it is a basic app, but as your app grows with multiple targets and multiple dependencies, then you can also add more provisioning profiles, add the respective provisioning profiles for it, and then just use the similar procedure of getting your workflow built on Codemagic. So let me just go back to my slide. So in summary, code signing is an essential process in the iOS development, but it can be time consuming and frustrating to set up and maintain, as you may have already experienced it in the past. I have at least. So Codemagic simplifies the process of automating the code signing and managing your developer certificates and provisioning profiles. You can focus on writing the best code as a developer and deliver high quality apps to your users instead of worrying about code signing. And with that, I conclude the presentation and I open the floor for having any questions. And you are feel free to ask as many questions as you want. We have many experts here to answer your questions as well.
Thank you, Rudrank. That was a great talk. So we already have like 3 questions. If you have more, yes, please type them in the Q&A section. In addition to Rudrank, we also have Pre-Plat here, who is the creator of Codemagic CLI, which basically handles the code signing part on Codemagic side. So he can answer some tricky questions as well. Also, yeah, even if it may have sounded like, oh, you want me to use this Codemagic thingy, yet another tool on my stack. As Rudrank said, Codemagic offers 500 free build minutes. And as you could have seen in the demo, the build time for a very basic app is just like 1 minute. So for a more complex app, it would be longer, but not much longer. So, well, yeah, you'll get quite some free time to play with Codemagic. And actually, it offers much more than just automated iOS code signing. It's a full-fledged CI/CD for mobile apps. So yeah, please feel free to play with it. And yeah, we got some more questions, and I suggest that we go through them. So the first question comes from Ayush, and I guess it's a complex one. How to use CI/CD in Flutter iOS apps?
So as you mentioned, Codemagic is mostly, and it is popular for Flutter iOS apps. And if you don't want to use the Codemagic workflow configuration, we offer the Codemagic workflow editor. So let me just try and share my screen so I can show you that. So if I go to my personal account, so I have this Flutter example project. You can see that when you add a new GitHub repository to Codemagic, it will give you an option to use the workflow editor, where you can just have a visual editor to create your own workflow pipeline. Like you can select Android, iOS, web for the platforms that runs on a macOS M1 standard machine. And here you can mention if you want to do the testing part, the building part by using the latest Xcode. And if you want to have your app on debug for debugging, or you want to release your app on the App Store or for test flight. And finally, you can use the distribution part using the iOS code signing. And if you want to, you can do automatic code signing or the manual code signing. And if you want to upload your app to the App Store for test flight and App Store purposes, then you can also enable publishing to App Store Connect. And this helps you use CI/CD in a way with your Flutter iOS applications.
I hope that answered your question, and we'll also be sending some useful links as a follow-up to this webinar. By the way, in addition to the recording of this webinar, if you've missed something, don't worry, the webinar has been recorded, and yeah, we'll be uploading it to our YouTube channel. So let me go to the next question. Robin is asking, when used with ad hoc distribution, will it update the profile if I add new devices to my account? Or in general, how is updating of those profiles handled?
I think if Preet is here, he can take up this question.
Let me try to enable Preet's voice. For some reason, I can't do this. So Preet, if you could please answer. Oh, I think I can. Preet, you're live, just in case.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Can you repeat the question, please, or write it down somewhere?
Sure. So when used with ad hoc distribution, will it update the profile if I add new devices to my account? Or in general, how is updating of those profiles handled?
Excellent question, actually. It used to be so that the old school Apple API enabled us to modify existing profiles, add or remove existing devices from profiles, but now it's not possible anymore. So by default, we do not add or cannot add new profiles into existing new devices into existing profiles. Instead, what we could do is delete or revoke the existing one and create new profile with exactly the same information plus this one device UDID in it. So sadly, Apple has made it a little cumbersome to update profiles in real time. I know that test flight does it to some extent, and actually I talked with the test flight author about it last year on a conference. His stand on it was that Yeah, I don't care. We can delete and create new profiles. Who cares? As long as they are not distribution profiles. Distribution ones don't include devices anyway. But I don't think it's so black and white, and developers should have more control about it. It's certainly possible, but requires a tiny bit of more work to get done. I don't know if this answers the question.
I hope it does. Thanks, Preet. We have quite some more questions. Mohammed asks if the certificates that are generated by Codemagic get renewed automatically.
I think this is another one for me. As long as we have certificate that we can work with, it's not expired, and the profile that requires it includes this certificate, then we do not create a new one. But if we don't have any matching profiles, certificates for given profile, then yeah, new one will be created, or at least we will attempt to create it. But you know, there is this hard limit on how many certificates you can have of each type. So if possible, we will renew them.
Thanks, Preet. I hope that answered the question as well. Valdo asks, so what do you mean by profiles? And I guess maybe that was the question that I should have asked earlier.
So I think I will take up this question. So if I have to give an example from Xcode itself, if I go to a particular project on Xcode and try to show you, if you go to general, on the signing and capabilities page, you can see a provisioning profile that is managed by Xcode. And the profile is just a set of what you can say, it is a profile that is included, that includes your certificates and your app bundle identifier, the team that you are belong to, and some certain entitlements like the capabilities, like if I want to include in-app purchase or keychain sharing or iCloud entitlements, and the devices that are included. When I say devices, these mean the real devices that I can run those apps on. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, we also have a question from Rodrigo about using Codemagic to build personal apps without having a MacBook device, only Windows. Is it supposed to work? Can I manage to build everything on Codemagic? I guess I can answer the most basic part. Yes, it will work. And while Rudrank will be answering the next question, I'll try to find the article that describes how it actually works and send it to the chat. And
to just give a brief introduction part, so we have written a very detailed article on this. So to give it short, you can manage not everything on Codemagic, but for the code signing part, yes. But then if it comes to debugging and everything, then it is a lot of pain to not have an not to have an MacBook, because you will be just trying to debug into a black hole and hopefully pray that everything works well. But for the code signing part, yes, you can do it without a Mac. I can take the second question, which is, many times my build gets failed in my local machine. What if same happens on Codemagic pipeline? That is a very interesting question. Let's say if your build is failing on your local machine, and supposedly it also fails on Codemagic, then for such a certain amount of build minutes will be taken. But we also have this option of VNCing into the machine. What you can do is that you can view into the virtual machine that Codemagic is using, and you can try to debug on that machine as well, because sometimes the build may pass locally and it may fail on your Codemagic pipeline. So you can use that advantage of using the VNC, or you can also SSH it into the machine as well. So if you are using the builds are failing locally, the best way is to try to debug and solve it locally before you try to run it on Codemagic pipeline. But sometimes the build may pass locally but fail on Codemagic, then you can use the VNC feature as well.
And also you'll get quite some detailed logs of what's happening. So you can debug the app using the logs.
And if you want to try it locally, the best answer that I can give you is to try the Codemagic CLI tools because we use that tool at Codemagic itself. So you can run those particular commands like building the IPA for Codemagic. You can use those particular commands in your terminal before you go on using Codemagic. If you want to, let's say, use the Xcode build command or the test command, you can do that locally before using it on Codemagic.
And last question for now, at least, again from Valdo. He's asking, what's the difference between code signing and certificate generating?
So code signing is a whole process where we make sure that each app is signed with your unique identifier, your bundle identifier, the provisioning profile, and the certificate that is given to you by the certificate authority. This is a whole process, and Apple makes sure that nothing has been tampered in between, so that this app cannot be anything malicious cannot be installed on your app. And certificate generation is just generating a certificate that is authorized to you for your developer account or your team's developer account. So there's a question if Alex, you want to read out the question for everyone?
Sure. The next question comes from Amit, who's asking, what kind of integration does Codemagic has with GitHub? Does it have the out-of-the-box solution like GitHub Actions for purpose of code linking and failing merge requests, PRs on basis of build, test, or lint rules? Rudrank? Can you answer this one?
So I was hoping that Preet answers this one if it is still on the call.
Preet, can you take this one?
Yeah, again, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely, and let me also post it into the chat because it's a long one. What kind of integration does Codemagic have with GitHub? Does it have the out-of-the-box solution like a GitHub Action for purpose of code linking and failing MRs, PRs on basis of build, test, or lint rules?
Yes, it's quite similar to GitHub Actions. Whenever you update the pull request or commit new, push new commit to your repository, then Git providers, not only GitHub, they send out webhooks. And Codemagic and other CI/CD providers listen to those webhook events and start builds based on those. And like GitHub Actions, Codemagic 2 reports back to the Git provider with build statuses. And it's really up to the developer who's maintaining the CI scripts to enable linters, run tests, etc. So yeah, in short, if you have proper CI pipeline, then in Codemagic you can set pull request status in GitHub based on build results. And works pretty much automatically. If the GitHub repository is added to Codemagic using the GitHub app integration. Yeah.
So like GitHub Action, when you say a GitHub Action, I assume you are talking about a community built GitHub Action, which has like underlying script that you can just use on any code provider as well. So when you talk about code linting or code linting rules, a PR failing on a code linting rules, you can just write a small script for it that automatically fails if there are errors for linting.
So I hope that answered the question. And we have one more from Baldo. How much time does it get to get access to the Apple's developer program? I'm working on an app and I don't have Apple account. Some links and where to see the keys you shown on the starting of the demo.
So I'm not really sure how much time does it take to get access to the Apple developer account because I got the Apple gifted me a developer account for a year because I won the scholarship. So I actually don't know how much time it takes, but I assume it will take a week maximum to get your Apple account. And when you get the Apple account, the first link is App Store connect.com, if I'm not wrong. I will just confirm it once. So it is appstoreconnect.apple.com, and the other website is developer.apple.com/account. Here you can have every information related to your account, whether it be certificates, profiles, or your app itself, or the details or the analytics for App Store Connect. Or if you want to download beta software or other software downloads, you can do it from here. And I hope that answers your question.
We're out of questions, it seems. So thank you, everybody, for attending. As far as I can see, we're a bit out of time as well. I guess that's fine. So yeah, thank you very much for joining again. And we'll be sending you the recording soon. See you around and ciao.